There are some days on a trip like this where you can just take things easy and get up whenever you want. And then there are mornings like today when it's all been a bit of a rush. This is Travelcaster, the travel pod that takes you there. So after a few days of ambling around Tuscany, today we've got a plan that involves a little bit more organisation, because we're visiting not one location, but up to 5. We're heading to the coast, to the Cinque Terre. Cinque Terre, the 5 lands, connected not by road, but by rail or sea. It's a great place to go if sustainable travel is your thing. Sustainable is all very well, but having booked some of the trains in advance for today, it was great to get an email from Trenitalia at 7:30 this morning saying the train that we'd booked on was actually travelling 50 minutes later. Now that's going to put a little bit of stress on our timetable for today, and the whole idea of this experience is to avoid stress. So instead, we're taking a bit of stress at the beginning of the day to try and get an earlier train from Pisa Centrale. So on a more normal day when the trains are running to time and there aren't 3 going at once, here's what you would do to get to the Cinque Terre. You start off at Pisa. Most of the express trains running from here are going to go north to Genoa, and they don't stop. So you have to change in La Spezia. Now from there you can hop onto the Cinque Terre line itself, which has trains running every few minutes throughout the summer season. Now you can buy a pass that lasts you all day. It will vary in price according to the time of year, and here in the high season it's €32 for the day, but it can be as little as 15 if you're here at a quieter time. So after yet more confusion and delay, we are finally on the train. And the good news is, because of those delays and because of that slight confusion, we've all ended up on a later train. This is an express service. Yes, it's heading north, but it's also stopping at Monterosso, the first of the Cinque Terre. Result. And here we are, an hour away from Pisa in Monterosso, the first of the Cinque Terre. Walking out of the station, you are immediately struck by the clear blue water of the sea in front of you, and the coves, the rocky coves that surround this particular town, and the other 4 along this coastline. Now, as we were travelling up from La Spezia, the train started going into different tunnels, and you got a glimpse of what was to come. Clear blue waters, little ferries going between the towns. And then when we arrive, straight out of the station in front of us is a massive beach. Here's the thing about Italy, and in particular this part of the coastline. All of the beaches are privately run. They're divided up into different sections. In front of me I've got orange and green, next to me blue and white. And you can go on any of the beaches that you like, but you've got to pay an entry fee. Now, depending on the time of year, will determine what you have to pay. But the good thing about these entry fees is that the beaches are kept clean, they are well maintained, everybody gets a parasol and a chair, and it means that the numbers are kind of controlled. Although it's 11 o'clock in the morning, and already there are probably about 250, 300 people stretched along this beach at Monterosso. Get here early to secure your place. Yeah, it's not just the Germans, you know. Now, once you've taken your time to admire the sea, turn left out of the station at Monterosso and head towards the cliffs. There, within, you will see this tunnel, which takes you into the main town. Careful of the traffic, though. It's only one way, but the local taxis here will not stop. Now, once you get beyond that tunnel, you come to a pretty market square with a couple of beautiful churches around it. And today, as most days during the tourist season, a huge market. I say huge, it's actually little stalls, but lots of them, selling plenty of tourist fare. There's also fresh fruit and veg and meats to be had in case you're doing self-catering in the area. And of course, ubiquitous cafes, patisseries, and a pastorita, place for many pastas. In the small square in Monterosso are two enormous buildings that will catch your eye. The first is the Church of San Giovanni Battista, St. John the Baptist, constructed under Genoese maritime republican rule between 1244 and 1307, says the plaque in front of me. A splendid example of Ligurian Gothic architecture. It's certainly striking, but not quite as striking as the bloke who's recycling all the bottles in the bar behind me. I hope they don't do this on a Sunday when people are trying to pray. Blimey. Here's a tip: if you're staying in Monterosso and you're a bit hungover, get up before 12 or you'll hear that. You're listening to Travelcaster, today coming from the Cinque Terre on the Ligurian coast of Italy. To find out more about what we've been doing here and what you can do if you come, just check out travelcaster.blog. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening. Well, we're on board our second train of the day to go to the next of our Cinque Terre, Rio Maggiore. It's at the south end of the 5 towns. The train itself is really modern, actually, loads of space on here, which is great, although it is absolutely rammed, standing room only, despite it being a double-decker. Now, just like the trains, pedestrians have to take plenty of tunnels in the Cinque Terre. Here in Rio Maggiore, there's a rather long, beautiful tunnel running all the way from the railway station into the town itself. And it's kind of decorated with lots of maritime sculptures, and the roof is made to look as if you're genuinely under the sea, when in fact you're in the side of a cliff. The 5 lands, the Cinque Terre, were first mentioned in the 11th century, according to my guide. And you may think, well, why did they build here on this rugged coastline that was so inaccessible? Well, in the first place, it was all about building forts to protect from invasion, in particular, invasion from the Turks. As pretty as it all looks today, the Cinque Terre were the scene of a disaster in 2011. Landslides came down the terraced hillsides and 9 people were killed. In particular, the towns of Vernazzo and Monterosso were badly hit. And it was this terraced way of living, building up on steps, building up and up and up, which was the cause, really. It was a bad thing to do. There were no building regulations back then, of course. People just did it. But lessons have been learned, and today the area is thriving once again as a tourist destination. If Monterosso is all about swimwear and flip-flops, then Rio Maggiore is all about hiking boots. Put on your best pair of shoes because you'll get the most spectacular views if you walk up from the centre of the village. It is quite a hike, it is quite steep, it is not for the infirm. But when you get here, you'll get to see the town from above and the sea beyond. Rather beautiful. And if hiking's your thing, in fact, you can walk between the Cinque Terre on a series of trails. Here in Rio Maggiore, there's an information office of the National Park that covers the Cinque Terre. They'll give you all the information you need to know. Now, bear in mind, the terrain around here may look beautiful, but it's extremely rocky and hilly. Some of the trails are occasionally partly closed because of landslides, so follow the signs, make sure you've got a decent map, and if possible, probably don't go alone. Now, when I was planning my trip to the Cinque Terre, I realised that it was going to be incredibly busy. So I thought, well, I wonder what the place is like once people go home for the day and only the true tourists are here. So, a bit last minute, looked online, found a room, and here we are. A lady who runs the residence said, come and meet me at the pharmacy once you arrive. So I did, and she was there with a key. She showed me into the room here. which has got a lovely bathroom area. It's better than the hotel I'm staying in. It's lovely air conditioning as well. We have Wi-Fi, we have tea and coffee, we've got a fridge, essential for the cold drinks, and best of all, we have a view right over the main street of Vernazza. Buongiorno, la Cinque Terre. Yeah, got an odd look for that. But it's close to the centre of town, and it's a really comfortable room. Best of all, when it's time for bed, the window can be closed and you can't hear anything. Should have come here days ago. It's gorgeous. And so here we are in Vernazza, our third and final stop for the day of the Cinque Terre. And out of all the Cinque Terre that I've seen, this is the closest that I've actually come to a port. There's a lovely, beautiful, picturesque, enclosed harbour full of tiny little boats, some of them taking tourists out on a trip. And if I go over this side of the harbour, there's quite a few people doing bathing in the sea. But there's a huge queue as well for the ferry that's come from some of the other locations around the Cinque Terre. It looks a little bit like that scene out of Mamma Mia where they all arrive for the party. In fact, is that Cher I see over there? Oh no, it's a man. What a mistake to make. In terms of eating, if seafood is your thing, then Vernazza is the place to do it. Fish and chips is the delicacy here. Not deep-fried cod, but calamari, caught locally and served in loads and loads of different... In terms of my eating choices tonight, well, I climbed all the way up to the top above the harbour to this lovely rooftop restaurant that looked absolutely stunning, only to be turned away. Didn't even have room for a table for one. Instead, I went up via Roma and found a place called The Lunchbox, and despite it not being lunchtime, they were still serving. Got a decent burger, €14. A beer, €5. Now, if there's one big tip I'll give you from this episode, it's to take a day away from your main base on holiday. Go somewhere else. Come somewhere like here in the Cinque Terre, away from Pisa, and explore more, because you'll get to see so much more of the place in the evening when the majority of visitors have gone home. And it also gives you a bit of chance to think about your next move. Independent travel is all about changing plans and making new ones at the last minute. So this morning, rather than getting the train back to La Spezia, I'm going to go on the boat. The Cinque Terre ferry service runs all year round, but in the summer is when you'll find most of the services. It visits a number of locations along the coast, connecting Levanto in the north with La Spezia in the south. An all-day ticket at 2024 prices will come in at €41. That allows you to hop on and hop off at any service. But I've opted for a one-way ticket from here in Vernazza to La Spezia. That's cost me €30. Well, that trip down the coast was stunning. It gave me a whole new perspective on seeing the Cinque Terre from the vantage point of the sea. We're here now at Porto Venere, our stop-off point before we go on to La Spezia. This is a busy little town. It has 3 beautiful islands just off it, Palmeria, Tino and Tineto, and you can have a cruise from Porto Venere to those 3 islands if you want. They go several times a day, or really, you can just go on the Cinque Terre ferry and see it for yourself that way. It's like having a transport from A to B and a cruise experience at the same time. On the ferry from Porto Venere to La Spezia, you'll get a panoramic view of the Ligurian Sea. There are boats of all sizes crossing this water, little pleasure craft, speedboats, and great big ferries like this one I'm on, called the Albatross. Not sure if I entirely like that name, but the views are spectacular. Behind us we can see where we've come from, the Cinque Terre, clinging to the hillside, and in front of us we can see La Spezia opening up, a much more industrial town than the ones further up the coast. A major centre and port in this part of Italy, and a way of connecting back onto the train which will take us on to Pisa. Now, if you're choosing to do this trip from the Cinque Terre to La Spezia, it's going to take you about 3 hours in total, but that includes a 1 hour stop off in Porto Venere, and it's well worth an hour of your time actually. You could wait for the afternoon ferry and spend 2 or 3 hours there quite happily. Loads to do, lots of shopping, restaurants, and lots of references to Lord Byron, who spent time in this area too. Byron tended to hang out where there was plenty of booze and plenty of views, and there are both of those in abundance. Now, as we get closer to La Spezia port, the horizon has changed a lot. To my left, an Italian warship in its battleship grey. To my right, a sea of ugly containers and ships that go with, and cranes. But before me, the ugliest sight of all. It's taller than all of the buildings in La Spezia itself. It's got about 15 stories on it by the looks of it. It's a cruise ship, and it looks absolutely disgusting. I can't think of anything worse than being encased in a metal container for weeks on end. Yeah, people go, well, you get from one port to the other, it's absolutely lovely, and there's loads of facilities on board. Yeah, one night on the Baltic Queen between Tallinn and Stockholm was enough for me, thank you very much. Now, once you get to La Spezia ferry terminal, you're going to want to get to the train to get you onwards. To do so, just walk across the park that's directly in front of you when you get off the boat, cross the road, and get the number 3 bus from the other side. You will need to buy a ticket for this. You'll get that from the nearby tobacconist. It's $1.50, and a journey to the station will take you about 10 minutes. If there's one main tip I can give you about independent travel from this trip, it's this. If you have time, if your budget permits, spend at least one night away from your main base. Yeah, you're going to be spending a bit of extra money on the accommodation, but you'll be seeing stunning locations at times when all of the day trippers have gone home. This evening in Vernazza, I've spent a lovely couple of hours sitting by the harbour side, chatting to a lovely Norwegian couple about their passion for travel. I've learned so much about the place that you won't do during the daytime. It's all been worth it. That's going to wrap it up from the Cinque Terre in Italy. To find out how we got here and what to do when you get here, just head to travelcaster.blog. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and join us again soon for another edition of Travelcaster, the travel pod that takes you there.